Hi guys, welcome back to the DynamoDB and Golang project series. I was away for a while. I was working on other series, as you already know. You must have seen them on my channel. If you haven't checked them out, check out the Golang and serverless project series that I've done. Right. So when I started building this project, right, the DynamoDB project, I realized that there's more that we can do with serverless, right? We can do lambdas, we can do API gateway. So I started creating those series also, right? So that's why I was away, and that will help you a lot in actual real world projects. Once you're very comfortable with DynamoDB. You don't have to use Golang servers, right? You can use Lambda that's completely serverless with DynamoDB, right? That'll be amazing for you. So complete the series, watch those other videos, and all of that, use all of that together, and you'll have like really good code to start building off other projects completely serverless. All right. So now we were done with our routes or routes, as whatever you want to call them. So we were done with our routes, right? And we want to now start. Eventually, we want to start working on our handlers, because as you can see, all the routes are calling get, post, and put and delete, all these functions, but these functions are in our handlers. So which is this folder here called handlers, right? And we have not started working on that. Now, and once you start building those handler functions, then you will be calling controller functions, and then the controllers will actually be calling your repository functions, which are your adapters, right? Which we have already built. So again, I'll just take you through it. We'll have routes. Routes will call functions in our handlers. Handlers will call functions in our controllers. And controllers will call our adapter or repository functions, which are our database functions. Now, before I start working with handlers and controllers, I want to first finish off my config.go file and main.go file, because these are like these are kind of important files and I've not touched on them. And usually if you follow my videos along, I always complete the main.go file first and then I work on the other files. But this time I just, took a different approach. I showed you that, I'm going in a more logical manner, in the sense you'll have your database functions, and then you'll have your routes, and then you'll have everything in between that we'll build now, controllers and, handlers and controllers that we'll build now. But then there's also the main.go file where the program actually enters from, right? So that we've completely ignored. But I want to work on that. And to work on the main.go file, we want to have a config file, because we obviously want those environment variables, right? So I'll call this package config. Now, a lot of questions that I get usually is people asking me, why do you create these different folders and have the same file name inside that folder? So this is a Golang pattern. It's a project structure pattern where the file name has to be the same as the folder name, and all different packages are in different folders. So this is like I think from Golang 1.15 they've done this, where this name has to be exactly the same as the folder name, right? You can't even have like C capital or G capital or something like that. It has to be exactly the same string matching with the folder name, and that's what the name of the package should also be inside your file, right? And then only everything will work perfectly. Otherwise, you can expect some errors. Sometimes people say that, I didn't get an error this time, but somehow it worked. I don't know how, but usually you'll get an error. All right. So string convert is the package that I need here, and I need my environment variables. So how do I call it? How do I call my environment variables? So this is the name of my entire project, and I'll just copy and paste this there for the time being. So back in my config file, I'll just copy and paste this here, and I'll just change a couple of things around. So what do I change around? I will say that in my utils, right? So instead of internal handlers, I want the program to go to my utils, which is my utils folder out here. And I want it to go to my environment folder, because that's where it'll find my environment package, which has all my environment variables. And I'll create a struct called config. It's going to have a port. You always need a port for the servers to interact with, right? So which will be an int. I'll need a timeout, because if the program doesn't work for a particular time, I want it to time out and let me know that there's an issue. Otherwise, it'll just keep showing pending. By the way, if you build production level projects and you don't keep timeouts, it can be a big problem, because your programs will go completely in like a forever waiting loop. Like your front end will always keep waiting for your backend to respond or something like that, right? So just make sure you always do this. You always have a timeout for all your APIs or your backend server to get back to you. You'll have a database URI, obviously, because Golang needs to know where exactly to hit, right? Where exactly the database resides, which port to hit for the database. And now we'll have a function called Getconfig, which will help us to get all these variables and define all these variables for us, right? So so that means wherever we are in our program, like let's say in our controllers or handlers or our adapter, we will call this config file and we'll get all these different ports and whatever, right? So, and they'll all call this function called getconfig. So for getconfig, getconfig returns config. Config is the struct that we just defined. So the getconfig function returns this complete config structure, right? And so we'll say return config, like I just said, it returns a config. Config has, as you already know, we've defined the struct here. It has these 4 different things. So it'll have port, it'll have timeout, it'll have dialect. Dialect is like, is it going to be like SQL and all that? And you have database URI. For port, I'll call a function called parse environment to integer. And we'll create this function right now in just a while. So I'll keep this port as 8080. And many times when this program doesn't work, right, I get a lot of comments on my YouTube saying that this program is not working on my computer and there's an issue. Please check if your port, whichever port you're using out here, is not already in use on your machine. So I think if 8080, if you're using, mostly Java also uses the same port most of the time. So it could be that some Java program is running in your background and that port is not free, right? So just change the port, come here and change the port or kill that process completely. Like on Ubuntu, it's very easy to kill it. I think it's kill -9, something like that, right? It's very easy. But I'm not sure how to do it for Windows. So if you're on Windows, you'll have to find out how to kill your ports or processes on those ports, okay? For timeout, so we'll get timeout also. Just a second, where was I? Yeah, on the config. Yeah, so timeout is 30. And dialect, so it'll be environment dot get environment, as in which environment is it? Like, is it prod or is it QA? You can define as many environments as you want. And dialect in this case will be SQL Lite 3. And then you have your database URI, which will be environment dot get environment and database underscore URI, comma. And then if you've seen the DynamoDB URIs, you'll see that there's this kind of a link that starts with memory, right? So these are the variables that I need. I need port 8080, timeout to be 30. I think this is seconds. And then you have dialect SQL Lite 3. This is the language that your DynamoDB and your Golang interact in. And then you have your database URL. This is where your database URL starts with, right? And then you have to create this function called, let me just create some proper spacing so that everything looks better. So you will have to create this function called parse end to environment. So let's create that function. What does it take? It takes an environment name. And it has some default values, which are string. These are the default values, right? And it returns an integer. Now we'll call our string convert function that I've just imported here but never used. String convert dot ATOI. If you have not checked out this package ever, string convert, do check it out. There are these functions like A2I that helps you do a lot of string conversions into integers and all those things. Just check them out. And it's basically basic Golang, very basic Golang. If you take the Golang tour, this is probably the first thing that it'll cover. Golang tour is a website where you can go and just learn the basics of Golang in case you didn't know. So just check it out. So here I'll get that integer in this variable called number, then that's what I'll return mostly. But if there's an error, I want to do something about the error also, so which will be basically error is not equal to nil. And I'll at that point for this integer I'll just return 0. Otherwise I'll return the number. All right. So if you want the port, it'll send you 8080. If you want timeout, it'll send you 30. That's what it's sending, right? The integer it's sending from here. And so this config.go file is done. Environment.go file was already done. Your adapters and your responses are perfectly sorted out. Now, like I said, we want to start working on our main.go file before I switch on to our handlers and controllers. So main.go file, you have package main, and then you'll import a couple of things. You'll say you want fmt, and you want github.com, /AWS SDK Go /service and /DynamoDB. All right. And there are a couple of more packages that I need, right? So this is one package that I need. In case you haven't watched my serverless videos, I talk about this package a lot, right? So this is AWS SDK Go is a package for which I have documentation open on my other screen. I always recommend you have you go through this documentation because it gives you so many different things, right? The AWS SDK Go package gives you access to DynamoDB and so many different services like Lambda and many more services basically. So just check out this package, check out all the packages that I'm using. DynamoDB is a small package and part of this huge library that AWS gives us for specifically for Golang. And now I want to start getting my other packages. I think I'll put them here, like log and like net/HTTP. If you can hear some background noise, please, what do you call it? Please ignore it because there's some work going on in my house, as always, because it's a weekend, right? So I have some cleaning stuff out here. Anyhow. Now I want to start importing my repository and instance, all those things. So I'm just wondering whether I should do it right now or I should do it later on. I think I'll just do it right now. Okay, so I'll go to my routes file and I'll just copy one of these little packages, right? Put it here. And here, what you want is inside internal, you want repository /adapter, which is this, right? Inside your repository folder, you have adapter package. That's what you needed. Similarly, you need the instance package. So you'll write the whole thing again. You'll just copy and paste it here. And here you'll say instance. Make sense? And then you need routes also. So for the routes, what are you going to do? You'll just copy and paste it here till internal. And just say /routes, because routes is a separate folder, right? It's not inside the repository folder, it's a separate folder, so we'll say /routes. And then there's another folder called rules, right? I've not done anything there yet, but I would need it, so I'll just keep it here. And inside inside rules, there'll be another, sorry, it's called rules folder. Inside rules folder, there'll be another folder called product, which will be like rules specifically for product. So I'll have /product. Cool. And then you also need the logger package. So I'll copy this and paste it here, but I don't want internal, I want utils, which is a separate folder than internal, right? So they're the same level, utils and internal. So inside utils, I have my logger. So I need my logger here. Perfect. So let's start with the config, the main file. So the main function I meant. In the main file, you have the main function. There's a variable called configs that we're creating right now. What does it do? It just takes your config and you get get.config. So now, if you were wondering till now, why did I create the getConfig function here in my config file, in my config package? Sorry, where's my config? Yeah, this one, my config package. Why did I create the getConfig file? It's because here I was going to use it. So that's why I had to create it first. That's why I created my config file first, and then I'm now creating my main file. So this makes sense. Okay. Now, I'll take a variable called connection, and this will be equal to instance dot get connection. So, and what is this, right? What is instance and what is connection? Instance is basically the file that you created along with me, which is inside your repository. You have instance, right? This file. And this has a function already called get connection, which helps you to set up a session with DynamoDB, with AWS and DynamoDB, all right? So that's what this function does. Now to create the repository, I'll take another variable called repository adapter dot new adapter. And you're going to pass connection in it. So now if you go to adapter, the file, you've already created this file, right? And there's a function called new adapter, this one. It basically returns the entire database to you, right? Along with the connection and log mode and all those different things. So the entire database you can access using repository. Make sense? Now I want to say logger.info. This is my logger package, and we'll say waiting for the service to start. Blah blah blah. Sorry. Dot comma null. And you'll call a function called migrate. That is here. We want to work on this function. This is basically, I'm just going to write some basic code for database migration. Okay. In case you're not aware about database migration, just read a little bit about it, what it is and how it's done. So there's nothing fancy. You can completely skip it. Now that you've written errors equal to migrate connection, you will get a couple of errors, and to handle multiple errors, this is what we do. We say errors, right? Length is greater than 0, then you do something. So we'll range over all those errors. And we want to obviously notify the user or the developer about all the errors, the developer in this case being us. So we'll range over them. We'll say error is equal to range of errors. And we want to panic in our logger. And we'll say error on migration, blah, 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 and comma, and we'll paste out the error. Perfect. And then you'll say logger.panic. You want to check tables, and if just check tables function fails, you also again want to panic using the logger. So check tables is a function that we need to create, right? I've already written it out. We will be creating this function soon. This just checks if there are the tables that we want to work with exist or not. Otherwise, we'll just create an error, right? So basic simple code for migration. We'll write these two functions, and for checking tables, basic code, right? This is like standard procedure. Whenever you're creating any file, any project that works with the database, it's recommended to use some migrating seeds and migrating scripts and all that, so that you're able to migrate the database. And also you're able to check the readable tables that they exist before you start working with the whole project. Otherwise, you will see some not so great results, in the sense inconsistent results is what you'll get. Okay, so fmt.sprintf and %v, comma, you want to print out the port, so you'll say configs.port. So you want to format the string, and you want to take the port here in this variable called port. And similarly with router. So sprintf basically helps you to format a string, right? I know by mistake I had said printout because I thought I'm writing printf, whereas I was writing sprintf. So I just got confused. Anyhow, so the router, where do you get the router from? So you'll say routes dot new router. Now in your routes folder, you already have a new router folder function. That's what you're calling here. So you'll say new router, comma, dot set routers, and you're sending repository. And then you'll say logger.info. Service is running on port, comma, port. And we'll have our server http dot listen and serve. Now this you already know, right? To create a server in your Golang, you just need to write this one little line, which basically is a function that net/http package gives you with. It's called listen and serve. And all you have to do is pass the port and the router. And if anything goes well, you'll log out the error. So with migrate function, what you get is a connection to your database. So you'll say dynamodb.dynamodb. Sorry, this is capital D, capital DB. And it sends back a slice of errors. So where do you see those errors? Errors is equal to migrate, right? And you're sending the connection, DynamoDB connection. And what's returning is a lot of errors, right? A slice of errors. And that's why you were doing the whole for loop thing. So firstly, to be able to return a slice of errors, you'll have to define a variable called errors, which is basically a slice of type error. Okay. And then you will call this function called called migrate and append error. So this is another new function, and we'll have to create this function. So we'll say call migrate and append error, and it basically takes errors. So here also you're passing to it errors, comma, you'll pass connection to it, and you'll pass rules product, which we have not talked about yet, and rules. We'll pass this. So we have not talked about this file yet, right? The rules and rules product thing. Don't worry about it for now. Just know that we're calling this function for migrating, and it's just returning errors in case things don't work out. So that was a lot, I think. So I want to continue these two functions in the next video because I'm kind of tired. I'll just take a small break, and in the next video, it will come out tomorrow or day after or whatever, we'll continue with these two functions, and we'll also start with our controllers and handlers and all that shit. Sorry, all that stuff. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe to this channel because we obviously, you know that I come up with awesome stuff like this, right, on Golang. So if you want to build really awesome projects, this is the way to go. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.